Hey, what's happening, everybody? It is Friday night. It is episode 321 of the Unfit Marks podcast. I'm Jay Brainless One. Will be joining us shortly. We've got a bunch of stuff to get into. We have a pretty clear direction now of what the main event is going to be for SummerSlam. Along with that, we have rumors of a backstage altercation, heated exchange between the Judgment Day and the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Seth Rollins. And we'll get into what may have caused all that in just a moment. On top of that, we've got a health update with JR.
Yeah?
And Bing. Yeah?
Hold on, did I get it in the shot? No, I didn't get him in the shot. I'm sorry. I apologize. He needs to be in the shot.
Yeah.
What's up, Cousin Jay?
Hey, you know, it's Friday night. Time to talk about professional wrestling, man. It's good.
Yeah?
Life is good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah?
I tried doing it the tall way, but for whatever reason, it made me go back to doing it the widescreen way. So...
You're not going to be able to see the stuff. Okay.
I wonder what happens. Hold on. Let's see what happens if I turn it this... No, I'm sideways again.
Weird. I don't know what the heck happened last week.
No, it was great last week. I was so happy it actually pulled off.
So, you know, Brainless One, what do you want to get into first with this week's episode?
I mean, there's a whole lot, but you touched it really quickly. I'd say we start with one of the topics that you were just talking about.
Okay. So Monday Night Raw, main event, we had the Judgment Day going, Spooky Pals, going Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. And apparently after the match, after Raw was off the air, there was heated exchanges going on behind the scenes. And it's not clear who did what or who was the problem. But what we do know is there were a lot of last-minute changes to the match. Like they said, literally, as entrance music was going, like they were still deciding on stuff for the match. Sounds like a Vince McMahon special to me. But, you know, even if you're a professional and, you know, you're still trying to figure stuff out right before, like, going out there, things are not going to go well. Like, sometimes you get lucky, but usually when things aren't planned out enough,
yes,
it just turns into a shit show, and that's kind of what happened. And apparently both sides were kind of pissed off. That's nuts and bolts of it.
And honestly, after I heard the next day that the reason that there was so many botches was because of the fact that a lot of stuff got rewrote, like you said, as entrances were going off. I mean, tell me it smells like Vince without telling me it smells like Vince. This is a total Vince power move. He is notorious for doing this. How many times have we heard over the years Vince McMahon, the day of Raw or SmackDown, went and completely just ripped up the script and just did something completely different?
I mean, too many to count.
But I thought it was interesting that there was actual words said, and I guess that Finn got a lot of the vitriol from his opponents for the evening. I'm assuming they patched things out and everything, but that's I again, like you said, you're not going to be perfect if you had a plan already set up and then all these changes were happening, and it's basically as you're about to walk out, you're still figuring shit out.
Right.
It happens.
It
So
does. And it sounds like whatever words were exchanged, there was no physical altercation that happened. This was just, I guess, apparently they blew off the steam, and it sounds like everything's going to be okay. It was heat of the moment stuff.
it was the heat of the moment.
Right. So I'm sure they'll get through it. I mean, not that long ago, we had Kevin Owens who uh, blew up Roman Reigns' eardrum.
Right.
And Roman was pissed about it. He finished the match, was pissed about it, but he and Owens did business, like I think it was the pay-per-view after. I'm
Yes.
sure that probably similar to that, and I'm sure now that a little time's passed and they're like, oh, and you know what? It sucked that we were thrown out there, and the plan that we had in place changed moments before we went
Right.
out there, and it just ruins your flow. And I'm sure they probably went through some rehearsals throughout the day, and you're like, all right, this is our plan, and
If it was handed by Vince, let's say it wasn't just some Joe Schmo that works behind the scenes for WWE. It's not Brother Love. It's Vince McMahon's like, hey, this is what's getting changed. Was there at least one pal thrown in there when he is delivering the news that they're completely changing the match?
not only was there a pal thrown in there, but there was also a dastardly laugh.
Ha ha. I'm going to dedicate 1 week of the Looks Like game to just nothing but Vince McMahon.
I mean, you got bald Vince, you got ring announcer Vince, Attitude Era Vince,
Oh, God. WrestleMania 38, Vince.
dastardly villain Vince McMahon. I'm sure there's a few other looks out there too that I'm missing right now, but
Oh, yeah. It's Vince McMahon. He's been a mainstay of television for 4 decades, so
right,
such good shit, pal.
yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. All right, what do you want to get to next?
The one thing I really want to get into, but I want to get some of these other smaller subjects over with. I do want to talk about the new rules that they've implemented going forward in AEW with the deal with Warner Brothers, because
It honestly, it looks like this is maybe it's just me here.
yeah,
Most of them seem to be pointed at either MJF or Moxley.
or the Elite.
Yeah,
That's exactly. I was reading some of the things, and I even wrote down all of the rules. I'm surprised it didn't take up a whole page itself. And I'm just like, yep, that's Moxley. Yep, that's Moxley. You can't grab anybody's drink. Oh, there you go, MJF. You went and ruined it for everybody. I think it was the skewers in the head that was, you couldn't be any more blatant of who that was. But
right.
we'll get into that in a bit.
But
I did want to.
things and exploding feet were not on the list.
I mean, you can't take everything from the Elite.
All right,
So,
before we go further, Mike Graney saying backstage drama after that match wasn't as bad as things were being reported. I mean, maybe so. Maybe so.
I think people just want to make tabloids just to make tabloids because the way that the writers have been handling this whole AEW, scruff from the scrum months ago and how nobody's talking about it. And we have so many questions, but nobody wants to answer them. So I get that that's why. And they're maybe trying to get credit. I don't know. I can't figure out because some of these people I'm just like, I can't do, like Sean Ross Sapp. Fightful in general. But
Sure.
one thing I wanted to talk about was a very interesting name had his contract end in AEW this week, and that is the son of Flying Brian Pillman Jr., whose contract expired, I think it was either Monday or Tuesday. He was frustrated with his role in the company. They weren't really doing anything with him and Griff Garrison, Mr. Garrison. And, he was upset about them taking Julia Hart and putting her with the spooky pals of AEW. And he was frustrated. So obviously his contract just expired. They took him off the page. Come to find out, apparently he was at the Performance Center already working out this week.
Hey, good for him. JR chimed in on this and said, you know what, he's a talented kid, and I think he just needs to get reps in the ring and have a plan and move forward with it. Clearly, Jim Ross sees talent in him, sees something in him that makes him think that this isn't the end of the road for him. I mean, he certainly can do the stuff in the ring. And
he's not his dad.
He was allowed to. I mean, it was pretty interesting what they did when they were the Varsity Blondes, and they tried to do stuff.
He had that match like a year or two ago against MJF, and he actually looked pretty good. And he's still kind of young. Isn't he in his late 20s?
29 years old right now, and WWE is looking for new people that are under 30 years old. And Mike Rainey chiming in saying what you were, Pillman Jr. at Performance Center this week, and Mike thinks that they should sign him.
I think they should too. I think he would really flourish down in NXT, and they really need stars. And I'm not saying that Brian Pillman Jr. is a star. I mean, he's definitely not his dad. I mean, his dad is quasi an F.M. Marks Hall of Famer because he participated at, Clash 13.
Right.
But I don't think he's Ted DiBiase Jr., but he's also not Cody Rhodes or Randy Orton. But I think with the right training, because I think he's got potential. They said he's a very talented kid. I liked watching him in AEW. Maybe under the right tutelage, maybe work with Shawn Michaels a little bit, whether it's Shawn looking at him or if he's looking at Von Wagner. But I think this would be a really good move for WWE, because a lot of people were saying after he got, his contract expired, that he should go to Impact. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think you could let Brian Pillman Jr. kind of slip through the cracks again if you're WWE.
Sure.
And
you could team him with Von Wagner, 2 second-generation stars.
Do people even realize that Von Wagner's a second-generation wrestler?
I don't think they do, and I don't think they've made it known, that his dad was part of the Beverly Brothers, was Mean Mike Enos, and at one point, him and Wayne the Train Bloom were known as the Wrecking Crew. I think that was when they were in World Class.
the Beverly Brothers. They had such a crazy finish. I mean, it looked like...
You know what? Their ending move to me might be the greatest tag team ending move that is not the LOD ending move.
Fair.
Might.
With me, I'm always partial to the 3D, so... But there's nothing wrong with the Doomsday device.
Another, I think, extremely underrated because the team didn't last super long. I love the ending move of Power and Glory. It was the superplex into the superfly. It was awesome.
It was such a cool finisher. That's my favorite part about tag teams, when they actually can incorporate finishing moves together. That's why I've always been a fan of tag team wrestling, because the Doomsday device was so cool. And just, the 3D was always a fun move. And even when, Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy, when they would be in a tag team and Matt would hit the Twist of Fate and then Jeff would hit the Swanton, it was perfect because it was set up perfect. That's why I've always loved tag team wrestling. And if you really wanted to, you could potentially put Pillman with Brecker.
Right.
Because that would work too, because they're both. We're not putting Von Wagner in this, Jay. We do not
Come on.
No.
NXT Legacy. NXT Legacy. Braun Breaker, Von Wagner, and Brian Pillman Jr.
Jay, that's like when they did the New Heart Foundation, and it was Jim Neidhart's daughter, and it was Bret Hart's paperboy.
Davey Boy Smith's son, and then their paperboy.
Yeah.
Tyson Kidd.
So, like, doing Brian Pillman. I mean, like, Brian Pillman, though. That's almost like Ted DiBiase's kid, Ted DiBiase Jr. being Ted DiBiase Jr. I think Pillman's a lot more talented. And Ted.
The thing with DiBiase Jr. is DiBiase Jr. could go in the ring. He just had the personality of a gnat as far as a performer goes.
I think that Pillman's just a little bit better on the mic than Ted DiBiase. I wouldn't say anything bad about DiBiase's in-ring ability. It's just that he's basically what Jungle Boy is now.
Right.
So.
I mean, I always go back to that SummerSlam match between, DX and Legacy in Hell in a Cell. I thought that was a freaking incredible match. And Ted DiBiase was a part of that and, was not a weak link. He could go in the ring, and I love the plan that the Legacy had there where I forget who they locked out. I think they locked Triple H out of the cage and beat the hell out of Shawn Michaels for the first 10 minutes.
That sounds about
before
right.
Figured out how the hell to get in.
Just don't climb over or anything, or.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically, if he had Kane or Brock Lesnar, they could have just ripped the door off for him.
And if they had Blue Kane, they could have gotten in even quicker, 10% quicker.
I'm glad you mentioned this because I was curious if there was going to be a way that we could segue into this. I saw it. Curiosity got the better of me. It was one thing, when I saw and heard that Blue Kane was a thing, but the fact that you spoke it into existence makes it that much better. So I went out there on the YouTubes and I clicked on and I Googled Blue Kane, and I don't know what really bothers me the most. The fact that he's basically just a Kane ripoff. Literally, all he is blue. He climbs over the top rope like Kane or he attempts to, the way Kane does. But I've never seen Kane step on the bottom rope to get over the top rope. Maybe that's the one thing maybe you just roll into the ring like Orange Cassidy. It's not that big of
to the ring like Chris Hero.
Or jump up there like Brock Lesnar. Nah. He's not. That dude's not jumping like that. I can tell you right now. He has the exact same moveset. It's basically just like watching Kane wrestle if Kane was like 6'1" and blue. But the most egregious thing of it all was his opponent. I don't even remember the guy's name. I don't want to know what the guy's name is. All I can tell you is he wore a plaid mask with a white mustache sewn onto the mask. I think eyebrows too.
These two, I think, were made. I might need to do some editing to get them in Clash 13. I want to see Kane versus Luigi Primo. If being honest.
We need Luigi Primo versus Orange Cassidy too, and the Danhausen and every other silly thing that we could do with the Regina Pizza guy.
Yes.
But yeah, I saw that, Jay, and not since I saw Kenny Omega eat 7 Canadian destroyers from an inanimate object was I very much embarrassed to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah?
But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm embarrassed to be a wrestling fan after witnessing that.
And apparently Twitter is also embarrassed by it. They have suspended Blue Cane's Twitter account. Or Blue Cane probably going over to Threads anyway and, start a new following there. It's Blue Cane! That's gotta be Blue Cane!
Cardona wants the match. I want to see that.
Yeah. That way he could get his revenge on Blue Cane instead of Kane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chiming in says he wants Jungle Boy to go full 90210, come out to the theme song, sideburns and leather jacket, and Anna Jay be his Jenny Garth.
That's what they've been saying. It's one thing for him to mention her and say, "I have the hottest bitch in the company around my. I'm banging the hottest chick, whatever it is." It's one thing for you to say it. What is she doing? She's just sitting in the Jericho Appreciation Society. Is that even a thing anymore?
The only thing that we have is Don Callis trying to convince Chris Jericho to get out of the Jericho Appreciation Society to come and join the Blackpool Combat Club for Blood and Guts. That's the only thing that we have really referencing that it's still an entity.
Because
and
I know
did out on AEW TV who the final participants are for Blood and Guts, which we had the return of one of the best bakers in the world, Pat.
one half of the Hostess Heroes.
Yes, from the hollowed out tree with a couple of buddies, a couple of toll houses,
A couple of punch stripes.
But honestly, the shocker statement for me, we found out that Kota Ibushi is going to be siding with the Elite, and the Golden Elite will return. Ibushi, who had his issues with New Japan and the Yakuza.
Just like Hulk Hogan.
But he will be showing up on Dynamite, I think it's this week, in the Blood and Guts match, and he is going to be with the Elite, and they're going to be going against the Blackpool Combat Club, and yeah.
I heard, and I'm so glad that you mentioned this because I had it written down too. I heard he was supposed to be on Dynamite on Wednesday, and then he got lost at the airport. And Kenny went to go find him and couldn't find him. I'm really not surprised Kota Ibushi is their tag team partner. It was as clear as the water in my cup that Kota Ibushi was going to be the fifth guy. The Keebler Elf being the fifth member of the Blackpool Combat Club was something I did not see. So, with that, I have two very important questions, and I'm hoping that you can give me the answer to them.
Okay.
How many cookies did Don Callis offer the Keebler Elf to be in this match?
Well, the thing is, Don Callis did not offer him cookies per se. He offered to buy from one of the hollowed out tree distribution sites a certain amount of cookies so Pac could feed his family.
Is this like when Dwight was...
You know how Roman Reigns is tribal chief?
Yeah.
Pac is the chief.
Is this like when...
There's a lot of mouths to feed in hollowed out tree. I mean, I always come back to, that episode of Family Guy, and I'm pretty sure they're related, but I think Snap, Crackle, and Pop are related to the elves in the
Ernie
tree for Keebler. But like they're at there was the war in the kingdom of Snap, Crackle, and Pop, and I remember them like putting up glasses. Like, this one's for Pop.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, to keep his family fed, Don Callis, I heard, had bought 100,000 cookies from Keebler, and that was the price to get Pac to be on the Blackpool Combat Club.
It was like the episode of The Office where Dwight was trying to he was apologizing and everybody had to sign off on it. So he goes to Toby and he goes, "You want to sign off on my apology?" And Toby goes, "Want to buy some Girl Scout cookies?" And Dwight shot him down. He's like, "I guess it won't sign." And he goes, No. I'll take a case of Do-si-dos." That's how I see it went down.
I don't think AEW would have the balls to do this, but I want to see this in the worst way. I want to see a cookie off between Samoa Joe and Pac.
Only if I could be in it.
Who could sell the most cookies?
Oh, I'd be there just to buy the cookies.
Yes.
Except Joe wouldn't make any money off me. I do not like coconut. But follow-up question, since we are talking about Don Callis. Can somebody explain to me what the hell that noise is that they're playing when he comes out to the ring? Because I am now convinced it was the same noise I used to hear when I was a kid whenever I had like a fever. When you had a fever dream, when you're sick with like having the flu or something, and you just have those when you're a kid. Yeah, that's what it felt. That's the sound that I'm convinced was in my head when I was like 9. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I feel like there's like a merging of like orbits or some shit, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Can somebody explain this to me? Because this is just bothersome. And
yeah,
and it's nothing. Yeah, and it's nothing against Don Callis. Don Callis has been killing it. He's been cutting the pro. He's got Dominic heat.
Yeah.
But if he is buying all these cookies, I would like to also throw my hat in the ring so I could be also part of the Blackpool Combat Club. I would. I mean, they didn't really need the cookies. He could have just told me I could have gotten in the ring with Kenny and the Bucks.
So, I mean, you could be part of the cookie brigade here.
Ooh, with Samoa Joe and the Keebler Elf. I love it.
I think this is the newest faction in AEW. And, you know, speaking of food and speaking of things, Tony Khan says he is trying to convince, he is chipping away at Chris Hero to make an in-ring return and make an in-ring appearance for AEW.
I've been tweeting at him.
Say about that, brainless one.
I have been tweeting at Tony Khan that we want to see Chris Hero return to the ring. It's only going to be a matter of time before I tweet at him that I need to see Chris Hero get stuck between the bottom rope and the mat again.
Now, to me, the only appropriate show for Chris Hero to be on is Collision. We need Nigel McGuinness to do commentary so we could have the immaculate weight gain happen again.
I've seen the pictures.
I know that Nigel was not the first to, like, within a match, escalate somebody's weight, but I don't think anybody has ever had somebody escalate, you know, like 70 pounds within one match.
The closest he got was when Hulk Hogan said that Andre the Giant weighed like 100,000 pounds when he body slammed him, tore every ligament in his body, and then killed the Giant from the slam. But
El Jefe, Mark's Hall of Famer, El Jefe says, he weighs 250 pounds, Morrow.
He's 280 pounds, Marlo. But the best part is because we've seen the pictures of him now. He somehow is going to, like, engross to a point where he's going to be like 500 pounds. He's going to look like the Stave Puft Marshmallow Man.
Now, on a similar note, did you see the Adrian Adonis Dark Side of the Ring episode?
I did.
And they talked about him, like, getting up to, like, 400 pounds. And I had heard heard some of the stuff about Adrian Adonis. Like I had heard the Danny Spivey story about, you know, him taking some liberties and Spivey ended up beating his ass. I thought it was a pretty interesting episode, quite honestly, and I think this with just about all the episodes, they would actually be better served if they were like an hour and a half.
I agree.
Because it feels like they cut out an awful lot of detail that could be pertinent to this stuff. But it was a really solid episode, and you know, just hearing how he was trying to figure his way back and then ends up in a car accident. But yeah.
Jay, my childhood has just been absolutely eviscerated. It was bad enough when I was told to go back and watch every 80s promo because everybody in WWF and in World Class or Jim Crockett or whatever it was on coke. And seeing Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and obviously the Ultimate Warrior, if the Macho Man didn't have sunglasses on, I'm pretty sure he would look the same way. But Bret,
well, when Macho Man would take off the sunglasses, I mean, his eyes would be bloodshot as hell. I mean, we're talking like Booker T on WrestleMania pre-show level of bloodshot, except for you could tell it was like
marijuana,
fueled rage, not grass fueled.
Yeah.
No.
he didn't look like Rob Van Dam during the draft.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but finding out about Bret Hart, I'm like, oh my God, if there was anybody I could have bet on in the 80s to have not ever have done coke, it would have been Bret Hart.
Wrong.
I am stunned. And he admitted, he goes, I did it a few times, realized it wasn't for me, so decided not to do it anymore.
And in his book, he kind of talked about the same thing with steroids, where he's like, I did it for a bit, but like, I didn't really feel it doing anything for me, so I stopped doing it.
It's hard to not like the Hitman.
I mean, clearly he's got a tinge of bitter and like, you know, guys like Hogan never put him over like they were supposed to. Like there's a little bit of that, but you feel bad because like there were a group of people that he had gone through the business with who many of which were like literal family. And he's like the sole survivor. You know, if you're talking human version of Survivor Series, like Bret Hart's it. He's like most of the people that were his close friends and peers and colleagues are just not here anymore. He's the only one left. He's got Shawn who he wanted to kill. He's got Hulk Hogan,
who loves everything about Hulk Hogan.
I think the only one, and I don't think they were super tight, but that, you know, clearly they're friendly, like Ric Flair. That's about it.
He's got Austin.
Gone. Davey Boy, Jim the Anvil, Dynamite Kid. I mean, you could go down the list. Most of his close friends are gone.
Is the Hart Foundation the more modern version of the Von Erichs? I know it's completely different because the Von Erichs was one way and the Harts was a different.
I mean, if you mean by Hart Foundation, the Hart family, kind of, sort of.
Because even the Hart Foundation, I would say, was kind of like the family anyway, because Jim Neidhart was married to his sister.
Yeah.
You know, Davey Boy was married to one of his sisters. The Dynamite Kid, I think Bret was
brothers-in-law.
Yeah.
With
that was it.
Because Bret Hart's first wife and Dynamite Kid's wife were sisters.
That's right. But I mean, like, who's left? That's Kevin, right? Kevin Von Erich's the last one left, and it's kind of like the same thing with the Hitman, where he's the last one left.
Yeah, like there's Bruce Hart left, and like his sisters are left.
Yeah,
But if you're talking about the ones that were wrestling on the big stage, yeah, he's the last of them who are left.
yeah. I'm just always happy to see him out when he's doing all the wrestling conventions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what made a couple weeks ago when he pulled out of a convention
Yeah,
uh, for health reasons. It's like you hear about that and you're like, damn, I hope it's nothing too serious. But I mean, on similar note, a person that he had a significant feud with in WWE in 1995, Jerry Lawler, pulled out of a upcoming appearance because he's still recovering from that big stroke that he had all those months ago.
right.
Sometimes people just don't fully come back from that. My grandfather had a massive stroke when he was in his late 70s, never recovered his speech. Like he could walk pretty well, but never the same as he did before that.
Right.
And you just never know if it's going to come back. But it's sad to hear the people that, we grew up watching, getting to that age. And maybe they're not ever going to be the same. I mean, I think of, Bobby Heenan.
Yep.
He got cancer and just was not making that many appearances anymore. I think like the last like one where like he still kind of had a voice, could still talk and do his thing was when he got the Hall of Fame induction.
Yep.
Like he had cancer and had surgery, so he didn't sound like himself, but he still could talk and still had the wit. And then, cancer took more and more from the brain until it eventually took his life. And now it's like from the people, the people that like during, our formative years, like growing up as teenagers and what have you, now getting to that age where it's like, crap, man. So I hope Lawler does make a full recovery. But it sucks hearing that he's not going to be able to make this appearance because he's not there yet.
Right. And another thing is you got to kind of at some point just walk away. Sometimes your health is more important, your livelihood is more important than you going to make an appearance, or the fact that Jerry Lawler actually has wrestled in 50 consecutive years, or every year for 50 years, or whatever it is that he's done.
Yeah.
And this is the guy who suffered a heart attack in the middle of Monday Night Raw and just had a stroke. Jerry, just hang it up. Your legacy, you are one of the greatest to ever do it. You did something that even Vince McMahon couldn't do when you got Andy Kaufman. You are a pioneer in this industry. Harley Race, after winning the King of the Ring, couldn't even be called the King of the Ring in Tennessee because you were Jerry Lawler. But eventually, Jerry, you just got, and I'm probably going to get blocked again for doing this, but Jerry, you just kind of got to, it's frozen. Let it go.
Right.
I do not want to build a snowman because I'm not Tony Khan.
Okay. And talking about Lawler, thinking about his greatest tag team partner JR. JR gave a bit of an update on his condition, kind of saying like I've been to a few doctors and kind of what we were doing wasn't working. I've got really smart doctors. We're going to figure this out. I'm going to get healthy, and we're going to do this again. And he has set a goal for himself. He's not saying he's going to be there, but he's set a goal for himself to be there for all in. I think when he's saying be there, not just as a spectator, he wants to call a match at All In.
I'd like to see what, depending on what they do with like CM Punk, Maybe they could just have him call the CM Punk match, but here we are, and All In is basically right around the corner, and we have no idea what's going to be the main event of this huge show in Wembley that almost 80,000 people are going to be packing. Because you have people that call themselves executive vice presidents that don't want to take the sand out of their vaginas and make this match a thing.
Right.
Although the fact that we're going to get FTR versus Bullet Club Gold tomorrow in the 2 out of 3 falls match for the titles is going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if the reason that they won the number 1 contendership was they beat the tag team champions on Collision last week.
Well, I mean, I guess it's. Is that better than beating Marco Stunt? I don't know. I don't know if it's better than beating Marco Stunt.
I don't know.
I don't know.
And it seems like a lot of it is like AEW is trying to steal and copy everything WWE does. And I know that WWE has been around for forever. So eventually history repeats itself. But come on. You can't just keep stealing all the stuff that WWE does. You were doing good things by starting off your show with wrestling matches. Now we're starting with opening monologues with different wrestlers. We don't typically get wrestling matches to start the show.
You know what? One thing that I find disappointing with AEW, part of the thing for me that was the flair that they had at the beginning that they don't have now, is that they would randomly show up at some independent show and have matches. And they were clearly representing AEW at the show. And we're not getting that like we used to. Like, I thought that was one of the things that made it exciting and interesting. Beyond just what they were doing in the ring, I thought, and I understand, hey, part of that was marketing to try to get excitement for the brand, but like WWE occasionally changing titles on house shows,
right?
That helped build excitement for those things every once in a while. Quite honestly, I think WWE is due for a title change at a house show just to like get fans maybe slightly enamored about going to it. But I don't know if we're going to get that because they keep on touting about, hey, we got record numbers at the gate and this, that, and the other thing. I don't know.
Let me ask you this, since you mentioned it, and I'm probably just, this is probably the craziest tinfoil hat theory I could come up with in this situation. But you did say that it has been a while since we've had a title change at a house show.
I think AJ Styles might have been the last one, was it?
I think when he beat Kevin Owens for the U.S. Championship, if I'm not mistaken.
And it's been a little while.
Yeah, and honestly, do you? And I think it's crazy that I'm even thinking this, but they could do a house show on Dusty's like 46th anniversary of when he beat superstar Billy Graham by countout, but didn't become WWF champion. Cody finishes the story in the building where his father tried to write his own story. But do you see them ending Roman Reigns' illustrious, incredible reign as champion at a house show, even if it's at Madison Square Garden?
No.
Okay.
No, not never, not know how.
Okay.
Quote the Wizard of Oz. Roman Reigns will lose in front of a big crowd. I'm still leaning towards my theory of the double turn at WrestleMania 40, where Cody realizes that like he's the American Nightmare and he could not beat Roman with, on his own without the help of somebody or something. I'm convinced this is where we're going.
I don't.
Words. I've been talking about this for a couple of months now.
You have. I will admit you have.
I think this is the way they're going to go. Call me crazy, but I think it would be interesting to do that so that, like, I mean, Roman has been full on heel for 3 years now. I know he gets a lot of loud babyface reaction when he says acknowledge me, and then he says something to get the heel heat and get the crowd to boo him. All that being said, the man has surpassed Hulk Hogan, surpassed Stone Cold Steve Austin as far as merch sales. Now, I don't know if we're talking volume, but if I think we're talking numbers as far as dollar amounts, Roman Reigns has passed out the icons of the business. And they said his numbers now compared to 6 months ago, and he was the top seller then, just keep growing. And beyond that, a lot of people were kind of complaining about how long the segment went for the tribal council and what have you. The audience grew from the first quarter hour to the second quarter hour. This has been the best rating SmackDown has done in years. So the people complaining about it are a vocal, but clearly a large they're a minority. People are invested and want to see how this plays out. So good on them for this. And Roman is doing his thing, and like I said, I'm still convinced it's going to be a double turn at WrestleMania 40. It's going to be Cody versus Roman Reigns. Cody will finally admit he couldn't do it by being the American Dream son. He's the American Nightmare. He's his own man, and his dad couldn't get the job done, so he had to do what his father would never. That's what I'm with.
I love the way you present that too. I really do, because that almost sells me, except for the fact that somebody came out and said it. Cody Rhodes is their Hulk Hogan. Cody Rhodes is their John Cena. Cody Rhodes is, and without question, the biggest babyface in WWE until SummerSlam, when hopefully Austin Theory issues an open challenge. And then a certain somebody's music hits and he turns face, berates freaking Austin Theory the only way he knows how to. Let me talk to you, pal. Yeah. Then he'll be surpassed by it. By the way, Jay, have you seen that the yeah movement is a thing?
Yeah.
They have a yeah movement. I've never seen a human being being presented in so many different ways than Sean Rooker has, because he was doing infomercials. He's showing up in Triple H's workout videos. He was in an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I saw one where he was playing a fat cock blocker in some kind of a weird commercial. I saw him. I've never seen a human being being utilized in a way that Eli Drake, LA Knight, Max Dupree, whatever you want to call him, has been used. I've never seen this. This is a big thing. So I am taking this upon myself that I am going to wear this shirt every single week on the podcast until we get what we want.
Yeah.
And that we want them to push the best wrestler in WWE, LA Knight. In the words of Cameron Grimes, to the moon.
All right. Mike Rainey chiming in saying, I think they end Roman's reign at one of the big premium live events. I don't even think he loses the title at WrestleMania. 40. And he said, I could see Roman holding the title for another year or so, at the very least. So one thing with Roman Reigns that did happen in the past week is he is now the longest reigning champion in the WrestleMania era. Hulk Hogan's first reign was 1,474 days, but that first year was before WrestleMania. Roman Reigns passed him out last week at 1,042 days as champion. So basically, since WrestleMania started, Roman Reigns is the longest reigning champion. If he's going to beat that Hogan mark of 1,474, he has to have the title for basically a little bit more over a year. So basically, if he held it through WrestleMania but lost it at next year's SummerSlam, I'm saying
no.
That
I'm telling you.
Go. I mean, we finally saw him pinned at Money in the Bank. Clearly, we're going to get Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. It's not official, but it's official.
Somehow, some way, they're going to pull off a dusty finish. Can you explain to me? You're like not Wikipedia. You're like Urban Dictionary. Your cousin Jay Dictionary. So I could just go to you and be like, can you tell me what a dusty finish is?
It's been a while since I've been versed in the dusty finish. But I think generally it was like, I think it was generally like a non-finish. But I would have to look it up to be able to verify that. I don't think the dusty finish is done as much these days, but it would be a nice little wink to the people paying attention and who've been watching for a long time. But I would have to re-look it up to see what the dusty finish is.
Okay. I figured I would ask because if anybody would know, it's Jay. And I've seen it at least 3 or 4 times this week that they've been talking about a dusty finish in the main event at SummerSlam.
All right, Tim's just saying it was a finish, but I think there was a specific fucking of the finish.
Okay.
That was the dusty finish.
I'm gonna have to see if that is actually on Urban Dictionary. That'd be great. I'm gonna go turn on my light real quick. Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what are the stories out there? Just a fun little story. Even in the water, not on land, the Undertaker is one of the most intimidating human beings of all time. Apparently, even looking at a shark in the water, the sharks run away from the Undertaker. You have to say about this, brainless one. Did you see the video?
I did. I just love the fact that Michelle McCool shot a video of the Undertaker standing there by the beach, and the shark was like, "No thanks, I'm out." I think there's a seal over there. I'm not getting tombstoned. This guy is 21-0. I saw what he did to Mick Foley. If that guy threw Mick Foley off of a Hell in a Cell, what do you think he's going to do to a shark that's going after his wife? Think about that. And it always makes me go back to 1995, like the days before WrestleMania 11. Ugh. WrestleMania 11. When I was at Steven World of Wheel and stood in line for about 2.5 hours to get a picture and the autograph with The Undertaker. When I said his name, when I walked up to the table and he looked dead at me, My whole body was a goosebump. I almost shit my pants. 11-year-old brainless one interacting with the Undertaker. So yes, I understand why the Shark did it. Because I would have done the same thing if I was the Shark.
All right. Dusty Finish is the nickname given to a specific ending to a wrestling match in which one wrestler appears to have scored a win only to have a decision reversed, often on some small technicality. So basically, how Dusty won but didn't win the title.
He won, but by count out.
Yeah.
It's going to be something stupid like, and this is the only way I could see them really doing this, if that's how they're going to do it. It's going to be some situation where the referee's going to be like knocked out, or he's going to be, distracted, and Jimmy Uso's going to come in there and he's going to super kick Roman, or they're going to do the double super kick, and then Jay's going to get the pin, and then they're going to be celebrating, and then like a referee's going to come out and say, no, Jimmy Uso super kicked Roman, and that's how it's going to get as a disqualification. That's what's going to piss off and lead to the Usos having their feud. If that's how they're going to do it. That's the only way you can do it. I'm sorry.
That way you'll have the Jimmy and Jay match at WrestleMania.
Yeah. Yes, I would love to see Jimmy and Jay at WrestleMania. So.
Vince screwed himself over. He could have had one of the greatest matches in the last 10 years and decided he didn't think it was a big enough deal to have it at WrestleMania. Thank you, AEW, for putting Dustin and Cody in a match. Vince, don't fuck this up.
That match was better than Kenny and Ospreay, and you can't tell me otherwise.
I agree.
And
the Dustin and Cody match is one of the thing is, I would put it up there with some of the greatest Walter/Gunther matches that we've seen.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're brothers, and that added another layer of stuff that you don't get from Walter or Gunther matches, took it up above those because it had that extra personal layer.
That is 3-time Marquee Award winner Gunther for Match of the Year. He's going to win the fourth. Unless something crazy happens, he's winning it for a fourth time.
And that's fine. I mean, he as impressive as it is that Roman Reigns has held the title for as long as he has, his longest title clearly is wettest hair. I mean, we are 7 2/3 of a year through his dominant reign of wettest hair.
What if when he finally goes face, he shaves his head?
He'll have to have a shaved head, I think, for a year.
No. Because if by any chance he has a shaved head by the Marquee Awards, he's automatically disqualified. And then we have to give it to the next guy up, which is either going to be Twinkle Toes or the man who eats chicken wings. Although I am leaning towards Seth Rollins because he's trying to win back his best dressed Marquee Award that you stole from him last year. Well deserving stealing it from him, by the way, but
yeah,
that's not how he sees it. Jay, since we are mentioning people in the bloodline, I forget what the next pay-per-view for Impact is. I think it's Bound for Glory or it's Slammiversary. Thank you. I knew it was one of the big ones. I just didn't remember the name of it because Impact. They're doing Deonna Purrazzo versus Trinity Fatu for the Women's Championship, and the first time ever the women's title will be main eventing a pay-per-view in Impact.
good for them. Uh, you know, I went to Slammiversary in, I think it was 2011. Main event was Sting versus Bully Ray for the Impact World Championship. But quite frankly, the match of the night was Taryn Terrell. I'm blanking on who she went against that night, but they had a freaking banger of a match.
After Banger?
Right. Match of the night in my view. Like Taryn Terrell, when she was in WWE, Tiffany, like they didn't really get to showcase her to be as good as she was, and like clearly part of her thing when she got to Impact was like going, I'm not just a manager, I'm not just a general manager of ECW, I can actually do this thing, and I'm not just like a pretty face. Like Taryn Terrell, I think if I'm remembering right, does stunt work, and she like went, pardon the expression, all out for that match. And actually, it might have been against why am I blanking on her name right now?
Velvet Sky.
No,
Angelina Love.
Married to Robert Irvine, Gail
Kim.
I think it was Gail Kim. The two of them had the best match of the night. So, now all these years later, finally having a women's main event match for Impact Wrestling, I'm all for it. And I don't know if this was the original plan or if the fact that Burt Macklin, FBI's brother Steve Macklin, got injured has caused anything with this. But Steve Macklin was supposed to be in a match for the Impact World title, got injured, and I think they were in the process of figuring out who was going to go against Alex
Shelley.
Impact title.
Oh, it's Magnus.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why I'm blanking. Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis is winning this title.
Magnus in his first run.
And honestly, if Alex Shelley's just a transitional champion, that's just a shame, because I'd really like to see him get a run. Because the dude has been really good. Him and Chris Sabin have both been really good for a very long time and have been successful everywhere they've gone. And I'd like to and nothing against Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis does deserve to be the Impact or TNA or whatever the frig they're calling it.
He was champion at one point.
Yeah, but I need to see Chris Sabin versus Alex Shelley for the Impact Championship. That's something I would even contemplate spending $30 to watch. Tag team partners for a very long time. The reason that we have Generation in wrestling now.
Hey, you know what? I would put Motor City Machine Guns against Generation Me. I'd put Motor City Machine Guns against the Hardy Boys in Impact Wrestling. Those matches were off the frickin' chain. Like, go and watch them. They're enjoyable as hell. I don't think there were 5 million super kicks back then in the match. There were a lot of them, but not like every other move where it ends up being a parody of itself. They had some awesome matches. They really did. I think they did a triple threat, like TLC type match where it was Generation Me versus the Hardys versus Motor City Machine Guns. If I'm remembering right, again, I think my memory is on point, and it was awesome. You should check it out. The Young Bucks were not always what they are now.
No, the Young Bucks have always been what they are now. And I'm not allowed to watch Nicholas and Matthew in tag team matches because Brainless Wife won't let me have any kind of blunt objects near me to try to knock myself out or poke my eyes out with.
I hope also do not have cleaning supplies near the TV. You just don't know what is going to happen.
But, I mean, to go back to what we were discussing with the main event for Slammiversary, I am happy for Deonna Purrazzo. I know it's because Jordynne Grace and, Mickie James got hurt, and I think, Jordynne Grace, quit or her contract expired or whatever it was, so now Deonna Purrazzo is the champion. I never thought that WWE should have gotten rid of her.
Right.
When she was in NXT, I was like, she should be in the main roster. She's that good. She might not be great on the microphone, but she's serviceable. She's better than Shayna Baszler ever was until she absolutely destroyed Ronda Rousey a week ago. But I think they dropped the ball. They should have never got rid of Deonna Purrazzo. And really, of all the women that they had let go from NXT, I mean, yes, I actually, I know Peyton Royce was on the main roster, and her and Billie Kay, I actually enjoyed the Iconics because me, I love tag team wrestling, and they were a legitimate tag team in wrestling for the women's division. But Deonna Purrazzo was one that they really should not have let go of. She is that good. And I know that when Chelsea Green went back, when Chelsea Green was like, I'm going home when she left Impact, and then called Triple H and got her job back, and now she's tell me who's better than her in the women's division other than maybe Asuka and Asuka. But, I mean, I hope her and Sonya win the tag team titles. I really do. But, again, I'm happy for Deonna. WWE dropped the ball with her. I could care less really what happens with Trinity Fatu. I have a feeling she's going to win this match because it just seems like it's too coincidental that they're going to put two former WWE female wrestlers in the main event and be the first ones in Impact and not do a title change. It's either that or Mickie James is going to make her triumphant return at the pay-per-view from injury. But I could see it, especially if Mercedes Moné is going to be in the crowd. Yeah, they're definitely going to do a title change, and I don't need to see that. I don't need to see the one woman who has walked out of WWE more than once celebrate with the woman who walked out of WWE with her, win in main event, and get these spotlights that they feel. Because I could care less what happens. I was never a Naomi fan. I'm sorry. I never saw it. She was too choreographed in the ring. She had a very unique but very entertaining entrance. She is a damn good athlete. I'll give her that. But other than that, her moves were just too choreographed and looked fake. And I'm also glad you mentioned Matt Hardy. Because this week, Matt Hardy got into a Twitter war with the greatest podcasting hosts who are not effing marks, Brian Last and Jim Cornette, with Matt Hardy. Because Matt Hardy said that people who listen to Cornette's podcast are a cult and are going to believe everything that Cornette says about the Elite and not form an opinion about them themselves.
There were a couple of striking things with this exchange. If Brian Last's opinion means nothing and you don't care about him, why do you keep responding?
Yes.
When Brian Last said, I call good shit, and if it's bad, we call it bad. And Matt Hardy's response to that was like, my booking fee is high. That doesn't mean what you're doing right now is good. That means that you have built up a lot of love and respect from the community for what you've done over your career. It doesn't mean what you're doing today is good. So basically, Matt Hardy gave a non-answer to that. And as much as I have a ton of respect for what Matt Hardy has done overall in the industry, like, what he's done lately, like,
I know.
Brother returned at WrestleMania. To me, that was like the last real, like, I'm like, oh yeah, this was cool, this was awesome. He still shows small flashes of what he used to be, but he certainly isn't what he was.
What has he done in AEW that has really stood out, other than the fact that he was almost killed on television by a chair thrown at his head by Sammy Guevara?
They keep on putting. How many factions has he been in? 37?
It's between him and QT Marshall and Chris Jericho over who's gotten the most factions.
And that's not a slight on Matt Hardy. It's, they keep down because, he does have a lot of knowledge that he could dispense on people. But I would say Christian, coming in and having his program with Jungle Boy, that was something that, like, Christian actually put in the work and did his job in a way that, like, I haven't seen Matt do in AEW, and they're roughly the same age.
Yep.
Christian went full heel and just, did everything he could to get Jungle Boy over as a babyface, and Jungle Boy just, has the personality of a gnat at this point. All that being said, I mean, Roman Reigns had the personality of a gnat for about probably like 6 or 7 years before he finally, like, grabbed hold. I'm not saying Jungle Boy is beyond, being something, but
I am.
Christian worked his tail off to get that kid over.
You are the son of the prime definition of what a 90s heartthrob was. And you have the personality of this pen. But to go back to the point...
Tim said it right. He should go full-on Dylan McKay.
Yeah, and have Anna Jay with him. If you're going to do it, you got to have her with him. But there was a couple of points to go back to the whole Cornette and Brian Last and the Matt Hardy thing. There was a couple of points that I wanted to mention. When Brian Last mentioned that Matt Hardy was an enabler, that really set Matt off. And that was the response I couldn't wait to read. Because he is. I'm sorry. Jeff has been doing all of these bad things for a long time. If you are his family, you care about him as much as you do, you go in there and you do whatever you got to do to get him to stop. You are not doing that, Matt. I'm sorry. For the longest time, I never liked you. It took that whole broken gimmick for me to actually like you. I never believed you could slam a tornado. I like to see you take on a monsoon of gorillas.
Yeah.
But you are an enabler. I'm sorry. You are. Your brother keeps making the same mistakes. Granted, he's been in rehab. But you threw the freaking WWE under the bus. He walked out of WWE, gets signed with AEW, and then gets in trouble again. You're an enabler. And people are like, oh, his wife was probably posting that shit because she feels that way about Cornette. His wife's just as much of an enabler. That's just all they are. He's a family of enablers. That's why Jeff is the way he is. But another point I wanted to bring up, and this one really kind of irked me, is these people who go out there and they sit there and they say, Jim Cornette goes out there and trashes AEW and he does all this stuff to get his people to turn on AEW and say all these negative things. As somebody who listens to Cornette's podcast, other than the Bloodline, which they do shit on, by the way, Gunther, Cody Rhodes, and Logan Paul, everything else in WWE, Cornette shits on. He hates Kevin Owens. He hates Kevin Owens as much as he hates Kenny and the Bucks. But even when Kenny, like he even says about Kenny, at least he looks like an athlete. I just don't like Kenny Omega because A, he makes the shit look fake, which he does. I formed that opinion without even listening to an episode of Cornette's podcast. That shit with the blow-up doll is just disrespecting wrestling. like I said, it was like watching that magician do the the things behind the scenes of professional wrestling. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
But the thing is that he's critical of both. He has things about AEW he likes, but he's got things about WWE he likes. He's got things he doesn't like about both.
Tell me this. Have you ever heard anybody speak so glowingly of a match as Jim Cornette and Brian Last did about Bryan Danielson versus MJF in the Iron Man match?
Yep.
More or less, both of them said it was about as perfect of a match as you could have.
Yep.
Like, they don't crap on everything. They don't. They have strong opinions on what good wrestling is, and right now they're saying Matt Hardy ain't it.
I agree.
He feels like a hanger-on who wants a paycheck.
And honestly, I listen to his podcast. I don't agree with everything he says. We'll take politics completely out of the equation. He hates Orange Cassidy. He calls him Pockets, the mascot of AEW. I love Orange Cassidy because you know what? It's different. I thought it was silly when he first got into AEW, and then I saw him wrestle against Pac, and I'm like, this dude could actually wrestle. It's just a unique and a different,
right,
shtick.
A different flavor.
Yeah, and I enjoy it. He's one of my favorites in AEW. I watch Dynamite and Collision and whatever show because I watch Collision anyway, but I watch Dynamite when he's on. I've probably watched more Orange Cassidy matches than any other wrestler in wrestling whose name isn't Sheamus.
Shameful thing.
Lobster head. The last four since AEW became a thing. And I think it's silly because it really does seem like a lot of the people who are having a hard time with Cornette are the fans of the Elite. The same people who are going after FTR. The same people who are going after CM Punk. The same people who were ganging up on me many a times on Twitter, especially on my old account. I got in trouble one time because they all just ganged up on me because I said something negative about Kenny. And it's like, you guys can't be like this. Do y'all remember what it was like before 2019 when we didn't have two very, very successful wrestling corporations going at the same time? When Vince McMahon had a monopoly for the better part of 2 decades? Where we didn't have an alternative? That's what AEW was supposed to be, an alternative. It didn't have to be just like WWE. It just had to be an alternative. That's all.
And that's why Jon Moxley bleeding every 3 seconds.
I think this is where we segue into the one thing I really wanted to talk about in this podcast.
Okay.
AEW this week sent out an email or whatever it was to all the talent. And with this new deal with WB that's going to be imminent, probably even before WWE and the merger with UFC, is they have a new list of moves that have been banned in AEW, and then a whole list of things, cheese and crackers, of things you have to get a coach or a executive to sign off on for you to pull off. And I'll tell you right now, Jay, I was going over this list with Brainless' wife before the show.
Yes.
And the one thing she took away from this was it seemed like they really singled out 3 people, or at least 2 that she said. I saw another person in there too. She said it really looked like they were singling out Moxley and they were singling out MJF.
Right.
I think Kenny had a lot to do with this too. But I'll go over now. It's going to be hard to, even for me, to understand brainless logic when I try to fit so many things into small things. But these apparently are now the banned moves in AEW. Chair shots to the head. Do I really need to go into detail on this?
I mean, brainless logic.
I don't need to see any wrestlers in their 40s die anymore. We don't need another Chris Benoit situation. Unprotected chair shots to the head. Any shots to the back of the head. This is where it gets interesting. Buckle bombs and backwards into turnbuckles. So the Seth Rollins move.
Right.
Okay, oh boy. Fencing responses, which is a way your hands go if you get concussed. Seizure cells.
Ric Flair having a heart attack because he had to plug the pacemaker back in. Bless you.
Bless you. Spitting. Blood in the crowd. Weapons in the crowd. Now, they went into all these details. I don't think I need to go into details like what weapons you can't bring anything into the crowd. You also cannot swipe food or drinks from guests in the crowd, and you cannot get physical with the crowd. Those are all the banned moves. Anything stick out for you for that? And that's not just for Jay. Anybody out there is there anything on that banned list of moves that stood out for you?
I mean, for the most part, they already aren't doing the unprotected chair shots to the head. I think there was one early on that Cody took in AEW.
From Shawn Spears.
Because I thought Cody took one from Shawn Spears.
It was
when he was
Shawn,
the chairman.
Yep, it was Shawn Spears. I remember that because that was one of the. I was like, holy shit! You probably shouldn't have hit him like that.
Right. I mean, hitting people in the back of the head. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But I mean, clearly the stuff about taking food and doing stuff is MJF related. After he took the drink from the mom and poured it on the kid. Oh, that was alcohol, and that was bad.
The kid had
from somebody. It's like you know what you could get away with things though beyond this. They may have made this list, but there's nothing stopping them from putting a plant in the crowd and still doing the same thing.
Well,
they're saying you can't do it to somebody who is unaware.
Right. And which brings me to the next list, because this one is just as brainless, because I put this one together too. Thank God I have, I'm really good at quotations and commas and all that stuff. Otherwise, this would just be a giant mess. Just like my brain. So now you need to get permission from officials and I guess higher ups. I don't know if this means Twinkle Toes and the Hardly Boys, or if you had to get Tony Khan or Mega or whatever her name is, or if you have to ask Stokely, if you have to talk, Jeff Jarrett, or talk to Stokely Hathaway, or the dude from ECW, Jerry Lynn. If you got to go to one of them to ask them permission, but you have to ask for permission for apron and outside spots, tables, ladders, and chairs in the match, but they have to be padded. Elevated outside spots, which is if you set up a ladder or if you jump off the stage or something like that, elevated spots outside. Pile drivers.
Okay.
You need, Jesus Christ. HR moves? What the hell is that? Intentional blood, not just blading. It said that too. Intentional blood, not just blading.
Interesting.
Props, which is whatever it is, you want to call it a prop. Something you use to utilize to do a move. Weapon use. So that's, if you want to use a kendo stick, if you want to use whatever, thumbtacks.
Right.
Choking. Injury spots, where you get like what happened with Samoa Joe and Roderick Strong a couple of weeks ago. By the way, the fact that Roderick Strong came out on Dynamite this week wearing the neck brace, I was so hoping that they were going to do somehow, some way, selling the shit out of this. And the fact that he was basically the Squidward with the SpongeBob and the Patrick outside playing together as he was watching MJF and Adam Cole this week. But good on them. They have been whiffing on a lot of shit. The fact that they're overselling this Roderick Strong getting freaking thrown onto a chair by Samoa Joe is the best thing that they're doing right now. Crowd fighting. Not like actually fighting the crowd, but like when, the BCC's fighting the Elite, they can't, they can fight and they got to get permission to fight in the crowd.
Okay.
Referee, manager, extras, celebrities, and special guest bumps have to get permission. So
I mean, these make an awful lot of sense. I mean, if they want to try to reel in John Moxley from bleeding every couple seconds, I mean, these are effective. Hey, John, you just got this big contract. Would you like to keep getting paid? All right, cut the shit.
my two favorite things that I've heard.
Specifically Warner Brothers. I don't think this means they're pay-per-views.
This is exactly what it has everything to do with it. But the other thing coming from this deal, other than the list of the band and the permissible moves that you have to do, is they're now talking about doing a pay-per-view every single month. Do you, Cousin Jay, remember the days years ago on this podcast, of the early days of this podcast, if I remember, my memory serves me correctly? I know I've lost a lot of brain cells over the many decades I've been on this planet. Do you remember how painful it was for us? Where it was 1 week we would do predictions. The following week we're doing a review. The following week we're doing predictions again. Because WWE had 17 pay-per-views in a year.
It was rough.
It was, I looked up the definition of redundant in the dictionary, and it was a picture of us doing that every single week, where it just seemed like we were either doing reviews for a pay-per-view or predictions for a pay-per-view.
Right.
Thank God that in its own right is the reason why Billy D. Williams is in our Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Because he helped us get through a lot of those shows.
Yes.
But the fact that they're even thinking about doing this, and it, like I said earlier in the podcast, it already looks like AEW is trying to steal a lot of stuff that AEW has done, that WWE has done. The monthly pay-per-views. They have lists of banned moves and things you got to get permission on. They're trying to get less blood involved. The fact that they're no longer, a lot of these dynamites aren't even starting with matches. They're starting with, promos and people talking. It just seems, I mean, what else? What's next? Is Tony Khan going to grow a mustache?
Yes.
Are they going to bring it? Hold on. Are they going to?
Dastardly laugh too.
They're going to bring in Dirty Dango to debut against Chris Jericho at Double or Nothing next year, right?
I hope so.
But according to Ryback, that was supposed to be Ryback versus Jericho. Or no, Jericho wanted to do it with Ryback, but they gave him Fandango instead. That's what it was.
That Ryback story sounds, I mean, strikingly familiar to like Hulk Hogan stories.
I am so glad that you mentioned that, Cousin Jay, because I didn't know how we were going to segue into this.
Brother.
But I remember last week I had said, and I quote, that I was going to, oh, my back, I'm old. Ugh. I was going to do a top 10 Hulk Hogan lies list for this week. I didn't realize when I was going through the list how many there were. I
And there were like 100 a day.
I need to get that autobiography of him because he lies a lot in that thing.
He wrestled 400 days in a year, brother.
And there was a lot that I even omitted from this. And it was funny too because the honorable mention I wish I had filled in because I didn't see it until after I put the list together was when I heard that he wrestled Antonio Inaki in Japan, and in the match he slammed him so hard that blood shot out of his mouth and he died. And then they had to bring him to the hospital to bring him back to life. And Hogan couldn't wrestle in Japan anymore because the Yakuza was after him. There was a lot that I couldn't even put on this list, and there was a lot of good ones. But these are the ones that really stood out for me. So here we go. The top 10 Hulk Hogan lies over the years, according to the brainless one. Number 10, he pitched but got shot down a Legends match at WrestleMania 22. Not against Roddy Piper, not against the Macho Man, not against the Ultimate Warrior. No. It was going to be a Legends match, for whatever reason, with Greg the Hammer Valentine. Number 9, apparently Vern Gagne got Nick Bockwinkel to shoot on Hulk Hogan.
Brother.
I heard Nick Bockwinkel is as nice as Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You got to really hate Nick Bockwinkel for no reason to have that happen. Number 8, apparently he used to be 6'9", but after multiple back and knee surgeries, he is now listed at 6'4". This is just like how Terry Bollea and Hulk Hogan had two different penises that he told the judge in the. I will never believe. I can't believe that one.
It is on the record. If you did a FOIA request in, I believe, Tampa, Florida, you would find out that Hulk Hogan had a different size wiener than Terry Bollea.
I watched that.
Pretty impressive.
I watched that. That was not as bad. That 5 minutes wasn't as bad as being wasted watching the Kenny and the Blow Up Doll match. Number 7, this one actually made me laugh when I was writing it too. Number 7, he was the one who came up with the idea for the NWO, but he wanted to be with Booty Man and the Nasty Boys. I don't even know who Booty Man is. Is that Beefcake?
It is.
Okay. I thought so, but I didn't want to sound brainless, even though I am brainless.
That's using the old noggin there, brainless one.
Don't have any problems with your brain. We don't got one. Number 6, he apparently was recruited to be the bassist for not just Metallica, but for also the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, I hear that's true.
Number 5, he lost the deal to get the Foreman grill because he was too busy bringing his kids to school. I mean, what kind of a person throws their own kids under the bus in a story like that?
The thing is if you really want somebody to be the spokesperson for the, you know what ended up being the Foreman grill, like if they really wanted Hulk Hogan, they would have waited until he came home.
They would have blown up his phone until he picked up.
Yeah.
I really wish we had gotten the Hulk Hogan grill because we could have gotten the infomercials with him instead. What's up, brother? This is the Hulk Hogan grill, brother. You could put 6 patties on at once, brother. And that's not all, brother. Look at how easy it is to clean. Don't forget to take your vitamins and say your prayers. With the 24-inch python. Hogan, it's not that kind of infomercial. Brother.
And Act Now will give you a line of cocaine so you could be just like the Hulkster.
And if you act now,
of the 80s where you could get coked up and be just like your American hero, Hulk Hogan.
I put this one because just the word that's in it is just funny. Number 4, he shot the movies Mr. Nanny and Santa with Muscles. Apparently, he rewrote both of the scripts for those movies, but all the credit was stolen from him by the Dastardly Screen Actors Guild.
Mm. Mm. Is Hulk Hogan on strike right now?
I was actually going to mention something about that in a minute, but number 3, Hulk Hogan claimed that he partied with John Belushi after WrestleMania 2, even though John Belushi died 4 years prior in 1982.
You know, you just don't know. You know, John Belushi was supposed to be in Ghostbusters. Originally, he was supposed to be Venkman. Maybe John Belushi turned into a ghost, and maybe he was doing some lines and you know, just partying up with the Hulkster. You don't know.
I did not know that. My mind is just as blown as when I found out that Chris Farley was originally supposed to be the voice of Shrek.
Yeah, John Belushi was supposed to be Venkman.
Wow. Could you imagine Bill Murray not as Peter Venkman?
Tim said Hogan could have pulled a Weekend at Bernie's with Belushi.
All right, number 2. Number 2. Hulk Hogan claims he was the first person to ever body slam Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. When he did it, Andre weighed 600 pounds. The slam was so incredible that not only did Andre die 9 days later, but Hogan tore 18 muscles in his back.
You know what? I bet that's why he can't walk now.
That one got number 2, Jay, because even I was convinced that he tore 18 muscles in his back. Just like when I was convinced that somebody, who shall remain nameless, told me that PN News falls off of the scaffold in the scaffolding match.
You know, when Foley went against Triple H in the Hell in the Cell match in the year 2000, in the year 2000, when he left the indentation in the mat, I mean, that was the story that Tim, F and Mark's Hall of Famer Tim, was telling my brother that PN News did when he fell to the ring. I mean, it was great. My brother watched to the end of the match and was rather disappointed.
That's one way to put it, Jay, when you don't see PN News fall through the mat. That's definitely one way to put it. I think there was a word, I think it was livid I was, when, I can't believe you got me to fall for that, Jay. This is just as bad as when my uncle convinced my mother that Matt Damon and Johnny Damon were cousins. I still laugh about that to this day.
If your mom calls, just say yes.
Yeah. If your mother if your mother asks you if Matt Damon and Johnny Damon are related, just tell her, okay. Yeah, they are. You didn't know that? And the number one lie. And the number one lie. And it's not Johnny Damon and Matt Damon are brothers or cousins or in the same family tree. Or the fact that PN News fell through the ring. Or if that was one race too many. Not Elvis being a fan of Hulk Hogan, or the fact that Dusty Rhodes main eventing at Hulk Hogan's first ever wrestling show at 9, even though Hulk Hogan was 14 when Dusty debuted. And not in the one, and I didn't want to put this one on the list, even though it should have been on there, when he lied to the Undertaker saying that he hurt his neck and fucked him up. That one still pisses me off, because how are you going to lie to the GOAT, even if you are Hulk Hogan? No, Cousin Jay. Of all of the lies, the one that sticks out the most, because all the other ones, honestly, could be believable. But going around and telling people that you wrestled 400 days in 1 year when there's only at most 366 in a leap year, I don't know where you come up with 34 extra days, but if you travel one way, you're still going to have to go the other way. So you're losing time too, Hogan. It is physically, and listen, all the other ones are believable, but when physics comes in and says, wrong, you can't. It's physically impossible, Hulk Hogan, for you to have wrestled 400 days in 1 year.
Let me tell you something, brother. Hulk Hogan tore a space in the space-time continuum.
Or the fact that you hurt Sylvester Stallone in the Rocky III movie, or the fact that what was another good one? Those are all the good ones. I could go on. I don't really want to. I could dedicate an entire episode of the podcast.
Go on for the next 5 hours. We've already 13 minutes into SmackDown, and I mean, I'm crying tears of joy over Hulk Hogan's lies. So Tim did say in the chat, who lies more, WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan or WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump?
Hulk Hogan.
I would say at least there is more truth that comes out of Trump's mouth, but because he talks more often than Hulk Hogan, he probably lies. He has he probably has more lies built up. But I mean, wrestling 400 days in a year.
Like I said, it's believable, even though Andre died literally 6 years after he got body slammed. John Belushi was dead for 4 years before Hogan partied with him in New York or Chicago or Los Angeles. Can't tell because he doesn't say where he was, even though I think he was in Chicago.
I mean, Elvis was a big fan.
Elvis was dead a week after Hogan debuted in Tennessee.
Big fan.
Or a month. It was either a week or a month. It wasn't long.
He was a big fan, brother.
Oh, he was a big fan. Or the fact that Harley Race showed up to the arena holding a gun, set the ring on fire, and then shook Hulk Hogan's hand and said, "Thank you, can I have a job?"
Brother.
He wanted to drop the belt to Roddy Piper in the 80s, but Piper didn't want to drop the belt back to him. Was the reason why he didn't do it. Or how he was going to turn on the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. I could go on and on, but I'm not going to because...
So good. We should make like a... You know what? If I was a better drawer, I'd say we should make a graphic novel.
Him on a plane, 400 days, eating peanuts. I'm going to be wrestling in the Silver Dome, brother.
Yeah.
Such good shit.
So one thing that, earlier in the podcast, we talked about Roman Reigns really hitting a big goal, being the person who has had the longest title reign in the WrestleMania era. The Rated R Superstar last week entered almost as elite list, maybe in some ways even more elite. He is one of a handful of performers who has had a match and performed at Madison Square Garden in 4 separate decades. And I believe there are 7 people that did that. The names that I'm remembering off the top of my head were Roddy Piper, who also had done it, Arnold Skaaland, who did it, Bob Backlund, and the ultimate truth teller, Hulk Hogan.
Bruno was also on that list.
I don't think Bruno was on that list. I don't think Bruno.
I could have swore Bruno, because I remember Arnold Skaaland, and I remember Bruno, because I was like, of course it's Bruno, because it's Bruno. That's all he did, was he always main evented Madison Square Garden. You could go to any Saturday in the world, at any point in this, when Bruno wrestled and he's body slamming Haystacks Calhoun, like Hogan was slamming the Giant.
And he tore 14 muscles in his back every week, brother.
Bruno Sammartino wrestled a gorilla, and I believe that. That's more believable than Hulk Hogan wrestling 400 days in a year.
He did not wrestle a monsoon of gorillas, although I believe he wrestled Gorilla Monsoon several times.
Yeah?
Yeah?
That's great. I mean, honestly, Edge is one of those guys who is so grossly underrated for what he did, because he was a very integral part of WWE. There was a 5 or 6 year run. He was one of their top guys. And he doesn't get the flowers that he deserves for being, yes, I know he's in the Hall of Fame, but it's like, dude, it's Edge. Edge was John Cena's greatest rival during the peak of John Cena's reign as the number one guy. They were phenomenal together. He had a great rivalry with The Undertaker. Edge was just one of those guys that he could just work with anybody in it. It worked. It was great. And I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves of being one of the top guys that we've seen. I'm not saying he's Austin The Rock or Hulk Hogan, but Edge for me is right in that second tier. The only reason he wouldn't be there is because his career was cut short a little bit, and we're getting him, we got him back 9 years later, but with a better spear. But come on, mid to late 30s Edge? That was the dude.
Right.
And honestly, I'm really happy for him that he was able to come back and he was able to accomplish wrestling at Madison Square Garden in 4 consecutive decades. And that is, everybody who's on that list that he's on that list with is an impressive list of people to be a part of.
It is.
Speaking of Madison Square Garden, where the hell was Carlito last week?
I don't know. They talked about him being there, and he just was not there. But I'm sure we're going to see Carlito soon.
Do we see him tonight?
They're probably their spot. They may hold off till SummerSlam at this point. It's like, hey, how long did they hold off on the Funkasaurus? Brodus Clay debuting next week. Brodus Clay debuting next week. It was 5, I was going to say 5 months. I think it legit was 2 or 3 months before he finally debuted, and everybody was expecting the ass kicker, and he came out as a song and dance man.
My favorite part about that was John Laurinaitis did everything in his power. I just got off the phone with Brodus Clay. He's not happy. He's going to come in here. He's going to be so pissed off. And like you said, he was going to be an ass kicker. And I was excited for this. I was like, boy, they're going to really do something with this Brodus Clay. And then
they did.
And then they had Naomi and Cameron. I'm like, what the hell is going on? The Funkasaurus. I wish I could go back and get a time machine and go back to the day that he debuted as the Funkasaurus just to see my face. I don't want to see it live. I want to see my face live. Because I am one of those people, if it's so stupid that it's great, like the Ryback was.
Clash 13.
Like Clash 13. But wow, talk about a swerve. That was one of my favorite swerves too, because I appreciated the Funkasaurus. I think
right.
I think it's great that the reigning NWA World Heavyweight Champion is on Fox News just as much as the governor of Virginia is.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot. So one Sheamus has been voicing some frustrations about booking and how the Brawling Brutes in general have been booked. And one former WWE superstar actually tried giving some advice. Also, Vince Russo said some stuff. Vince Russo suggested the change of scenery for Sheamus. EC3 said, Sheamus, hey, dude, you've got almost 1 million followers on your YouTube page. Maybe you should get something over on YouTube. Let's see. Zack Ryder got some stuff over on YouTube.
And now he's feuding
things for his WWE career.
Oh, yeah, it did such wonders for his career that he's now feuding with Blue Kane.
EC3, it may sound like intelligence. It ends up in burial. That's why you're not in WWE anymore.
Which is funny, too, because one of the reasons Sheamus has got all those followers on his thing is because he does that Celtic workout with all the different wrestlers and everything. And that stuff's fantastic. I've watched a few episodes. That's actually that's such good shit, pal. But it's organic, but it's not something like he's using to get himself over. He's just showing like how the different wrestlers get to where they are as performers. And I think it's great that he's working with all these different people. And frankly, and I'm a huge Sheamus. You know me. I'm probably the biggest Sheamus apologist on the planet. But it's like, come on, man. You just need the Intercontinental title, okay? Just win the Intercontinental title so I can have the happiest moment in my wrestling fandom of being a Sheamus fan, so I can parade around the street like Doug did after the Cubs won the World Series. And I just want that so he could be the ultimate Grand Slam greatest wrestling accomplishment man in WWE history.
Yeah?
Yeah? But honestly, he failed all those times getting the Intercontinental Championship. It's like, if we're going to do it by like booking reasons, why would he be champion? Or why would he deserve a shot? I think that him and Roman have, they have history and everything, but it's like, come on. There's other people that could be up there. Jey Uso deserves a shot right now. Cody's got to be the one that ends up finishing the story and doing it against Roman. I do think if he does it at WrestleMania, he's going to do it at WrestleMania. I don't see them dragging it out past WrestleMania 40, if I'm being honest. I don't care how long it takes or what he has to do to pass Hulk Hogan again.
Mm.
I can't deal with Roman holding the title any longer. But you got other people. Gunther at some point is going to drop the Intercontinental Championship. I don't see him going and staying in the mid-card chase like he's been doing. He's eventually going to have to go into the main event picture. And there's your guy. I've said it before on the podcast myself. If you want to turn Roman face, you want to get him the ultimate babyface character, Gunther's your guy. Gunther's your top heel for the next decade if you know how to book him correctly. And I'll tell you right now, Triple H has done a hell of a job. Gunther hasn't lost the singles match in the main roster since he got promoted. We're talking Shinsuke Nakamura and NXT type of a run that Gunther's on in the main roster, which is unheard of on the main roster.
Right.
And the whole presentation and everything. But for me, like Sheamus, you should have pulled the trigger and had him win the Intercontinental title when you did. He's at the point where it's like, yes, I would love to see Sheamus get another world title shot, but there's other people out there that I think are more deserving than Sheamus right now, and I cannot believe I'm saying this. I really can't.
Yeah.
Yeah? But speaking of people who are looking for changes, we mentioned earlier about The Undertaker, how he went one-on-one with Shark Boy and sent the freaking great white shark floundering away because he was going to go after his wife. The Undertaker came out and talked about Bray Wyatt. And he said if Bray Wyatt wants to come back, he needs to come back as the Eater of Worlds. The OG version of Bray Wyatt needs to return. Gee, I feel like somebody else has been saying that for a while.
Yeah.
That was the version of Bray Wyatt that everybody loved. That was the guy. He had everybody. He literally said he had the whole world in his hand. The fireflies. The lights would go out and the lights. It was incredible. We've seen it. We were at house shows and we saw it. It was incredible. This shit was so bright. That man was over. The Fiend was unique. I'll give the Fiend that. It was a very unique character. I think he was just way he would have done better in the 80s and 90s. He probably would have done better in the Attitude Era. But once you've done it with the Undertaker and Kane, to make somebody like that, and it's like people are the way that it is now, it's just like we don't see it. And whatever the hell just came out at the Royal Rumble against LA Knight.
Let me talk to you.
I get it. He doesn't want to do the Eater of Worlds Bray Wyatt again because of the fact that it has ties to Brody Lee, and he, out of respect, he doesn't want to be that character. But I'm sorry. Sometimes you just got to go back to like I said, when they brought him in as the Fiend, if it's not broke, why fix it? That was his best character. That was when he was the most over. I don't care how much merchandise he sold as the Fiend. I took a picture with a lantern, and it was my profile picture for a long time. I love that picture. It's one of my favorite pictures. That's what I need. That's the Bray Wyatt. I 100% agree with the GOAT Undertaker on this one. What are your thoughts?
In the Undertaker's career, for a long time, you know, he wanted to be a continual evolution. And when they asked him actually to come back after injury, and I think it was WrestleMania 20 where he did this,
Yeah.
they wanted him to come back as the dead man. And he was really hesitant about it. It's like, they're going to expect me to, do what I did at the beginning. And I think what the Undertaker is saying here is you could take the pieces of all the other characters and all the other things you've done since then and now incorporate it. You could still be the Eater of Worlds without it being what it originally was. And that could be a way that Bray gets beyond, like, no, this was a thing with Brody. So unless Bray Wyatt has such a dynamite idea for a return character that, like, there's no way this is going to miss. I don't think coming back as the Eater of Worlds is a bad idea.
Okay.
It feels more stable than anything he's done.
Okay.
In the last handful of years, like, as much as I understand, hey, you're an artist, you're creative, you want to do something different, like, you have done so much damage on your own to your own characters. People need to have something that they could, like, oh yes, I remember this. You've done this to yourself, Bray. If you would have continued to, like, wrestle and evolve on TV where, at this point, like, we really don't know what kind of illness he has. They just, I think recently said, like, oh yeah, the problem he was having, he's still having. It's like, I read one rumor, I'm not going to say that this is factual, that maybe he has some form of cancer. I don't know if that's the truth, That's a rumor out there. It would seem to make sense of why, like, he's been away. And they're being hush-hush about it. It would make sense. But if it's, you know, him being in his feels, I mean, you would have to have him come back and tell people exactly why he was away for him to be able to at least get some credibility back with the audience.
Right.
I think he's destroyed a lot of it by how vague this whole thing's been.
But it also, and this is another thing that I can't believe I'm going to mention this, that Vince Russo was talking about. He goes, if people are going to go away, you got to be a little bit more open about why people are going away. Because people are speculating the same thing with Alexa Bliss. Oh, she's away because she's not happy with booking. She's away because, you know, Bray Wyatt's not there. Oh, lo and behold, she's pregnant. I think they can't be, what is it, translucent, or they have to be translucent?
They have to be transparent.
They have to be transparent. I'm not saying, like, if he's got, you know, that's fine. Like the whole thing with Brody Lee where they kept that all under wraps and then he just kind of passed and then everything came out. I appreciated AEW did that. But, like, in this situation, especially because he was there, he was booking towards fighting Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania, and then he just disappeared. Does he have long-term COVID, which I believe it's possible. My lungs were fucked up after the 3rd or 4th or 12th or 57th time I had COVID. I
had COVID as much as AEW has factions.
I'm wrong. I'm not. What is it? I'm the Tom Brady, or am I Tom Brady, or am I freaking whoever 8 is? I don't even know who 8 is. But I know I had a 7. I could have had an 8. I don't even freaking know. And I remember being the Booker T, and then it was the Michael Jordan. Now I think I'm the Tom Brady of COVID.
Yeah?
Yeah. But I believe it. I believe if he had long-term COVID, especially because you're just winded and you feel raspy and all that stuff, I get it. And in professional wrestling, you're not performing ballet. And if you're going to have these long-term matches, if you're going to go 15, 20 minutes, you can't be wheezing 5 minutes in. It could also just be that he is healthy and they just don't have anything for him. What are we going to do with Bray Wyatt? How are we going to use him? What character is he going to come back as? Just like you said.
Baby.
And just like you said with The Undertaker when he came back from injury and he was no longer the American badass and they wanted him to be the dead man. Hulk Hogan was stale as shit as the real American. He got no reaction in WCW. They were starting to boo him. They made him Hollywood Hogan. After a bit of time back as Hollywood Hogan in WWE, well, let's move him back to the real American. I'm sure Hulk Hogan was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Yeah, right. You're Hulk Hogan. The first time that music hits, just like The Undertaker's Gong and the glass breaking in Austin, the second real American plays, people lose their shit. I'm 40 years old. If I was at a show and Hulk Hogan came out, I'm shitting myself. So, it probably, honest to goodness, I've been saying it, he needs to come back as that version of Bray. I get it. You have the connection with Brody and everything. This was your best work. It's either that or you go back as Husky Harris.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Brainless One. Do you have anything else in your notes?
That was the last thing I had in my notes, Cousin Jay. How about you?
So one thing I do want to mention, like, I really didn't see him much and didn't have much of a connection of anything, but Mantar, former WWE superstar, did pass away this week. And I just wanted to give a quick mention to that. I don't have any real memories of Mantar, but it is sad whenever anybody in the wrestling community who, you know, at least had some sort of run where people would know who they are. You know, it's just sad when people pass away.
Yeah, especially at only 55.
Yeah.
And I remember Mantar when he debuted, and I'm like, what in the world is? I thought it was Bastion Booger. I thought they repackaged Bastion Booger into a guy who actually bathed and grew his hair out a little bit. Is this Bastion Booger's brother? Not as repulsive Booger?
Cassius Booger.
Cassius Booger. The Cassius owner is going to come out as Bastion Booger. He's about as fat as Bastion Booger now.
All right. All right. Should we get into some good, bad, and brainless?
I say we get into some good, bad, and brainless, Cousin Jay.
Okay.
What do you got for your good this week?
You know what? There were a lot of vocal critics of the length of the Bloodline segment on SmackDown last week. Guess what? I am not one of them. I think it takes time to tell a really good story. If it ends up being the thing that caused Carlito's debut to be pushed back, so be it. I mean, Carlito just spit in the face of Roman Reigns in the Bloodline, and that'll jumpstart him into his own thing. But this is something that's pivotal because it's the biggest storyline in the company, but it also is setting up their biggest match on their second biggest show of the year, even though I would say Royal Rumble to me is the second biggest show of the year, but we know WWE sees SummerSlam as number 2. But Bloodline on SmackDown last week was great.
Okay. My good for this week, I had to do this. I know for a long time we said Seth Rollins was a great worker and like he didn't have a character. What is this? He's the Messiah, he's the architect, and it's like, what is all of this? His work recently has just been phenomenal. But the fact that he came out in Buffalo, New York with a plate of buffalo wings and started eating them, I mean, you won me over right there. I was ready to go to Hartford, or not Hartford. I was ready to go to Plainville with him.
Yeah.
You want to sit here and talk about Buffalo's buffalo wings? Oh, no.
No.
Oh, Seth Rollins, I got the real place for you. Plainville, Connecticut, in a little place called J. Timbo's, the Buffalo Dirt Wings. To this day, a bucket of those would be my final meal if I was on death row.
Yeah.
But I appreciated him coming out with the chicken wings in Buffalo and just eating. I don't know what it is. He's just so entertaining. And the more I watch Seth Rollins, the more I enjoy him as a person, considering he was my least favorite member of the Shield when he first debuted. Seth Franklin Rollins with the chicken wings got my good for this week. Oh, excuse me. What do you got for your bad?
You know, this is not bad on somebody for doing something kind of stupid. This is just like, both health updates for JR and Jerry the King Lawler. Again, seeing the people that, we grew up listening to for a long time as a team, and the fact that both of them are old men who are struggling at this point, and just like, damn it, they're old and we're getting old.
Yes, we are.
So that's my bad this week. Brainless one, what do you got?
The main event of Raw. I have to go, and I hate the fact that, surprisingly, I have to go back to back with Raw for something. But the fact that the whole thing was changed, basically right as the entrance songs were playing and they were still trying to figure shit out, it was clunky, it looked bad, there was a lot of missed spots, a lot of botches. And then to top it off, the fact that there was a verbal confrontation backstage between all the people in the main event, whether it was overblown by the wrestling media or not, at the end of the day, it was not good. So right. I have to give the main event of Raw my bad for this week.
Okay.
What do you have as your brainless cousin, Jay.
Matt Hardy, congratulations, sir. You really went the extra mile this week, and you have achieved brainless status.
Oh, yeah!
It's okay for people to have opinions that you might not like. But to blame like two people for like the wrestling community having a dislike for the Young Bucks. I mean, that's a little bit far, dude. And when they try to point out stuff to you like on, hey, your stuff hasn't been good, and you come back to, oh yeah, well, they pay me good money. That doesn't mean your stuff today is good. It means your stuff at one point was really good, and they're paying you based off of that. So Matt Hardy, you get deleted and brainless this week.
For the record, since we were talking about banned chair, like unprotected chair shots, there's not a human being in the history of video games for WWE who took more unprotected chair shots from me than Matt Hardy. I'm not afraid to admit that. And all I'm going to say is that was going to be my brainless for this week. But then another AEW star decided he was going to do something really fucking stupid. The glasses are coming off.
Yeah?
One Brody King has completely gone from near the top of my list of people I like watching in AEW to getting buried so much he surpassed where almost Chris Benoit went. Actually, like physically in the ground, he got buried so much. That's what I was trying to get at. There's no human being worse in the history of professional wrestling than Chris Benoit. But Brody King, on his Instagram story, posted a picture of a clip from when the Big Boss Man wrestled the Undertaker inside the steel cage, and he hung him. And Brody King said, "All police are the Big Boss Man." My uncle retired. Is a retired 20 plus years on the force in Hartford. My cousin Luke works on the force in Hartford. My cousin Jimmy works on the force in West Hartford. I have family members who are in the friends of the family who have been in the police department of different police departments. I had many interactions. There are so many great cops that I've met in Bristol that I've known. Same thing with West Hartford and all these places. Hell, my father, El Diablo Blanco, at one point was a Bloomfield cop. You have an opinion about something, Brody King, that's fine. But to go after something like that, and this isn't just for Brody King. This is for me, for anybody who has had a thing against police for whatever reason. I understand that there are some crooked cops out there. But to say that about all police officers, the fuck out of here. I lost all respect for Brody King. And frankly, I'm surprised he still has a job. Because if Tony Khan had any fucking balls, he would fire him for such a thing that he said about this. That was just, for me, that was a slap in the face to say this about that. And the fact that there's nothing being done about it, as long as he's there, and I get it, the fact that he's close friends with CM Punk, and I like CM Punk, and he's close friends with Danhausen, and I love the Danhausen. But Brody King, I'm sorry. For your fucking comments, the brainless one is definitely solidifying you for not only being my brainless for this week, but you earned yourself a nomination for my brainless moment of the year.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sorry. I had to get that off my chest because that really just bothered me.
Yeah.
But on any other time, though, Matt Hardy would have definitely got my brainless because he's definitely sucking. Never mind. I'm going to be nice. He's very much a good soldier in the AEW realm because he talks so glowingly of the elite, just like Jake Roberts does, and you can't do anything wrong if you collect a paycheck from Tony Khan and share a locker room with the three shittiest people in professional wrestling. But, yeah, Brody King got it this week.
Okay.
So if you like what you've seen, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, And subscribe to us on YouTube, because we're not on that thread yet, I don't think, at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKS, the F in Marks. If you like and follow, subscribe to us. We will do the same back. That has always been our
mantra, and make sure you set up notifications so that when we are live, you will be notified that we are going live on the Facebooks. Also, make sure you subscribe to us on Spotify so that when you're not able to tune in to us during the live podcast, you'll be able to take us on the road so you can,
brother.
So you can actually take us on the road with you and enjoy the podcast as you go about your business. Yeah.
I think that's everything.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we hit everything. Nothing else that we could talk about today.
Hold on a second there, brother. I know that you two talk about Curtis Axel as much as you do because he's been alive for so long in the Royal Rumble of 2015. But did you guys know that I, Hulk Hogan, have been alive in the 1993 the 1992 Royal Rumble for 31 years? Hogan, get out of here with these lies, man. Nobody believes you. You were not alive. You got eliminated by Psycho Sid.
Yeah.
And the greatest performance in a Royal Rumble history when Ric Flair won from the 3-hole, even though Bobby Heenan was convinced he wasn't going to.
Not fair for Flair.
Hogan, you might be a WWE Hall of Famer and a Hollywood guy, but just realize this. You will never, and I repeat, never, ever be in our Hall of Fame. Because people like this man, who today, that man right there too, who today, what is it, July 14th? July 14th.
Bastille Day.
Yes, at 2023, at an astonishing 3,092 days, F. Marks Hall of Famer Curtis Axel is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
Bow, 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 bow.
It's been a while since I did the Curtis Axel thing and I didn't punch a wall.
Right.
My hand still hasn't recovered from those.
Right.
So for episode 321 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the F and Marks.
I'm Jay, and he is.
And I am the brainless one, and you make sure you mark out
with your Glock out. See everyone. Enjoy SmackDown, and I will not be here next week. It's up to the brainless one whether he wants to do the show, but we will keep posting on the social medias. And you know it's Monday, so you know what that means.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Later, everyone.
See ya. See you, Cousin Bobby.
Later, Cousin Jay. Yeah?
Yeah?